Hi, I conducted my professional development with a 7th grade language arts teacher, Miss Barkan, in a private school in Long Island. When I conducted my needs assessment, I observed that although Miss Barkan had an excellent rapport with her students, she had some trouble scaffolding her lessons and explicitly teaching the material she was working with. The lessons that I observed focused on a novel that the class was currently reading, The Outsiders, and I observed that the students struggled with narrative plot structure and the framework of a story. I also had a conversation with Ms. Barkan in which she told me that she needed some assistance scaffolding her lessons in a way that her students would be able to chunk the material and grasp it slowly, both in a guided way and in an independent way. Based on this, I planned my workshop to be on the Freytag pyramid and the gradual release of responsibility framework, both of which I felt would meet the current needs of her classroom because it would provide a comprehension structure to meet the needs of her students, as well as a explicit teaching model to meet her needs as a teacher. So during my professional development, the first goal I focused on was to introduce the Freytag pyramid, and the second goal I focused on was to introduce the gradual release of responsibility framework. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the Freytag pyramid. The Freytag pyramid is a narrative plot structure comprehension strategy which assists students in understanding how a story unfolds. There's 5 parts of a Freytag pyramid. There's the expedition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. When you introduce the Freytag pyramid to a student, you should explicitly define each of the 5 plot structure elements, and then they can easily implement that into any novel that they're currently reading. When I introduced the Freytag pyramid to Miss Barkan, I provided her with small brief passages, and she had to find examples of each of the plot elements within the passage. She highlighted them, and then she recorded them back into the graphic organizer. I then introduced to her the gradual release of responsibility. The first thing I did was provide her with all the vast research that supports the gradual release of responsibility model and explained to her how this was an explicit teaching method. We went through the 4 steps of gradual release of responsibility, and I showed her a small video where there was an actual classroom teacher conducting a classroom lesson based on the gradual release of responsibility model. We stopped intermittently throughout, and Ms. Barkan kept commenting, "Wow, this is amazing. I really feel like I could use this in my classroom," and I found that to be very effective immediately. The last thing we did was we planned a Freytag pyramid lesson using the gradual release of responsibility model. So we went through the 4 steps and we spoke about what and how we could do during each of the 4 steps in the gradual release of responsibility. My reflections on the workshop, I felt like it went very well. I felt like Ms. Barkan was very engaged throughout. She asked questions, I answered her questions. She gave great feedback on her review. She said that she would appreciate using more practice using the actual gradual release of responsibility model on lesson planning, which is something I would definitely recommend using in future workshops on the topic. I then observed Ms. Barkan conducting the lesson inside of her classroom. I thought Ms. Barkan did a wonderful job on giving the Freytag pyramid lesson to her students. Her students were very engaged throughout. She used the gradual release of responsibility model during her lesson. So she introduced it, she explicitly modeled practicing using the Freytag pyramid. They then did a guided practice where the whole class filled out a Freytag pyramid graphic organizer together, and they then did an independent practice, and 15 out of 17 students were able to complete the graphic organizer accurately. Therefore, I gave Ms. Barkan a 5 rating because her students and her were able to grasp the lesson very well. Ms. Barkan used the smartboard throughout all her lessons. She highlighted the passage as the students were highlighting the passage on the board. They were very, very engaged. They felt like this would support them and what they were doing. Some of them even commented, "Wow, we wish we had this when we were reading The Outsiders." So I knew that it was effective for her classroom. When asking Ms. Barkan how she felt she did, she also commented that 15 out of 17 of her students were able to grasp meet the objectives, and so she felt it was successful. My recommendations for people going forward are, number 1, create a cooperative environment with the teacher, ask her what she feels like, what she may need, and if there are further suggestions that she would give even before you actually do the workshop with her. Another thing I would recommend is providing teachers with as much practice as time allows you for, and also to give them actual teaching tools they could bring into their classroom, such as graphic organizers and worksheets, that they don't have to take too much time on their own preparing it, and they can implement it in their classroom immediately, because teachers are busy and they want things that would work very well. Thank you.